The Metal Mentality podcast is brought to you in partnership with AM300 and the Phoenix Project. For more information on both, check out am300.com/metal. I felt alone, like I was trapped in a cold, dark room.
I will be the last to fall.
It seemed as if I felt a ray of light.
I won't shed a tear for them to
In
see.
a world overwhelmed by darkness, how does one move into the light?
I won't have your name to call.
And it gave me the strength to break free.
I will be the last to fall.
Hell has lost its power. Be metal and stay metal with consistency, continually choosing to make choices for a better future. Fortitude, having courage while overcoming obstacles. Grit, perseverance of effort combined with passion while working towards being better today than you were yesterday.
Once I broke free, I never intended on going back. But I had made a promise that if I ever found my way out, I would return and fight to liberate those still trapped inside. You are not alone. Rest assured, I will be the last to give up.
These are metal-minded individuals, and these are their stories. You're listening to the Metal Mentality Podcast. Now, here's your host, Preston Ewell.
Today, I am so excited for this interview. One, because it's a face-to-face interview, and with the COVID and everything going on, I've been very limited in being able to do that. But we are here today in Sandy, Utah at Dialed In Fitness. So if you hear music in the background, it's from the gym. Not the music we're adding to this, but that's just kind of where we're at. And I'm here joined today by a longtime friend. My guest and I, we became friends 20 years ago when we were in high school. And I wanted to have her on the show because she's just so freaking incredible. She's so resilient. She is goal-driven, and she has been through her own version of hell. She has been through the suck, and she learned how to embrace that suck and use it as a catalyst for greatness. Today, I'm joined by Bonnie Barber. Bonnie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us and open up and be vulnerable, because I know being vulnerable is not an easy thing, and I think we shy away from it because a lot of times it's painful. And so I'm grateful for your willingness to open up with us today.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of us, when we're going through whatever we're going through emotionally, mentally, that vulnerability comes up, and it takes courage to really ask yourself hard questions and to shift your energy or your mindset. But by going through it, I believe that's how you really grow internally.
Yeah, I think you only grow through hardship. You don't grow being comfortable.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be hard all the time, right? Growth can be painful, but it can also be fun and exciting, with a little exciting uncomfortable.
You can feel multiple emotions at the same
Yeah.
time. You know, I try to teach my daughters that, and my son now, mainly through Daniel Tiger's
Mr.
Neighborhood.
Rogers.
They have a song they sing about it.
Yeah.
You can feel more than one thing at the same time, right? And it's true for adults too. And that's embarrassing that I said that, but we're not editing that out. We're going to leave that in there because it's a valid point, and that's just who I am. But let's talk about, first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what you do.
Okay.
And then I want to go to how you got to that point. So you are a life coach, you are an entrepreneur, you are a real estate agent, a mother, and a badass. So what else?
Thank
Did
you.
I miss anything?
Wow, you gave me a lot of great titles. So each one of those titles have kind of been one step to the next place in my life that I wanted to go without realizing that they were steps. I think just after high school, I wanted to really improve who I was as a person, physically, and through that change, I thought, I'm going to be a personal trainer because I want to help people. Show them that they can change their life, they can change their body, and they can be stronger. So I went into personal training and helping people realize some of that potential that way. Throughout the years, it's kind of evolved into other things. I'm a very good seamstress, and in the bodybuilding world, I wanted to meet a need and help people that way. So I started designing costumes for the bodybuilding stage and grew my business within a 7-year period with a lot of support and help. I didn't get to where I was without that or people believing in me, and I think that's key with any part of our growth, is having people around you that believe in you so you can grow. So I went into the bodybuilding industry and made suits, and with that I got to hear competitors' stories, their struggle, their journey, where they came from, and I got to be a part of that by completing their end transformation, right? Their physical transformation brought emotional transformation, and it was incredible to hear these women's stories. Some of them were needing something, consistency to fight the emotional stuff they had going on in their marriages, or a divorce, or young girls growing into how to be a young woman. And I get to give them this gift at the end and be part of that. It's like a wedding dress. You get to dress the final day, and it was pretty amazing, a little emotional. And then with that, I've always wanted to do real estate and to get into that industry, but it never felt right at the right time. And then 2 years ago, I started working on my license and got that. And as it evolved, I went, gosh, I really like real estate. The biggest transaction most people will do in their life is a home purchase. Mm-hmm. And with that is emotional and financial. And you want to work with somebody that cares about not only your best interest, but the bigger picture of what your well-being is. And so as I've started to do transactions and meet people and their family and hear their story, I get to be a part of that. I get to be a part of someone's journey and look out for them in their best interest. And that for me is very fulfilling. I believe that's my purpose here. That's what I enjoy doing, is helping people feel safe in a way, or that I'm looking out for them.
It's key to feel that the people you're working with have your back. They got your six. Coming from the military, that's huge. We always say to each other, "Hey, I got your six," which is, look at the clock. 6 is, if 12 o'clock is in front of you, 6 o'clock is behind you.
Yeah.
And you're living your life in a way that makes sure that you have people six. You've got their back. You're supporting them, making sure that they're successful. And so I'm going to go back to just a little bit about the bodybuilding industry. You competed, right, as a bodybuilder?
Yeah, I did. I did a couple of shows and had my husband as my coach through those shows. And it was pretty amazing to have his support through that.
First of all, the dedication that it takes to become a bodybuilder is, there's not many other things that are on par with it. Like, it takes a lot, especially in your diet.
Yeah.
And I love carbs.
Well, carbs aren't bad for you.
I love all carbs. I love lots of carbs.
Yes.
Cinnamon rolls, donuts.
Yes.
Bread, really good breads. I
Yeah.
love it all. And that's my 1 week. That and soda, man, I love soda. But but you have to kind of make a choice to abstain from those things to reach that point. So I'm impressed by your mental discipline and to be able to do something like that. What led you into competing, and what eventually happened that made you decide that this isn't what I want to do anymore? And how was that fulfilling for you during that time?
The seek for perfection. I wanted to have the ultimate aesthetic look, and I wanted to know how to get there. And I did triathlon coaching before that and raced and was working up my mileage for that. And then when I heard about bodybuilding, I went, ooh, this is hard. This is different, because triathlons, you can eat all the carbs you need to fulfill the sustained energy to exercise. But bodybuilding, with that, it's a whole nother level of mentality, from someone judging how you look to you staying grounded throughout the whole process. So For me, it was, I haven't been able to achieve that. I want to try to achieve that. So over a period of time, I just worked on being consistent with my food and juggling being a mom and businesses all at the same time. It is a lot of dedication and a lot of hours spent food prepping and things like that. And I kind of got to a point where I was enjoying it and I liked it. It just, with other things going on, it felt like the timing wasn't right, and so I took my training down and focused on some other things. So I'm not panning it out in the future. I think it would be fun to compete at least one more time, just to kind of see where I sit after I have my muscle maturity grow. But I think things for now, you never want to force what's not working right away. And there'll be a time where I get to put that time in again. And for now, I'm just kind of putting it on the shelf and focusing on some other things.
That's pretty incredible. In a previous conversation we had before this interview, you talked about how you realized that through bodybuilding, you were seeking validation from an external source that wasn't within you. Can you talk up a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was more than bodybuilding, right? I think growing up in a very predominant religious background, I was programmed to think that my inner intuition, my divine self, needed to be validated by things that I was or wasn't doing, and that followed me into everything that I did. Bodybuilding was just one thing where you get an outside validation, but to keep grounded when you're training for anything, you want to validate what you're doing for yourself first and then let it grow. And that's with anything. That's in your relationships. That's with your work life. When you're validating yourself for what's right for you, you do it with full capacity, full passion, like your podcast. You didn't worry about what other people were going to think, and you started doing things for you. So deprogramming myself to think that I needed to do certain things to have the approval of, outside things. It's very freeing when you start to say, you know what, I'm doing bodybuilding because I enjoy the process. And you go about it differently. Or I'm going to pick this job because I enjoy what I do. Or I'm going to live a certain lifestyle because that's what I enjoy doing. And you do it for you, and you don't worry about the other stuff that comes.
So it's a matter of knowing your why and harnessing the power of that why, and when you make that commitment to it.
Right, and commitment, right? Are you committed or are you interested? I was interested in achieving that bodybuilding level, but every time I would get committed and start heading that direction, other things would take place. So that's why, till I'm in a different place, I put it on the shelf for now. But that's with anything in life. Are we interested in choosing a new path? Are we interested in change? Or are we committed and willing to do what it took? So I had amazing coaches helping me and supporting me every step of the way, but ultimately it came down to the choices I made on my own, right? With or without that accountability. And that's with anything in life, right? It follows you into your integrity, integrating who you are on the outside as well as who you are on the inside, and being the same person. So once I started validating that I can still feel good and have those intuition and that divine self, it became more powerful, and my gifts started to come forward more just with my thoughts and feelings.
Talking about knowing your why, I want to go back to a little bit something you said earlier.
Okay.
I want to clarify something you said about me. You said that that's like you with your podcast, like you just didn't care what people thought. And when I started this podcast, I cared deeply what people thought. So much so that I wasn't willing to be vulnerable and share my story of how I've gotten to where I'm at.
Yeah.
But through this podcast, by doing this, by talking with these elite performing people such as yourself, I've learned that I don't need to worry about what other people think. And I think that that's something that we all struggle with. We all have those insecurities. We all wonder.
There's a fear.
Yeah, we have this fear of like, well, what are people going to say about me behind my back or to my face? What if they make fun of me?
But is it really anybody's business what they think of you?
It's not. No, exactly.
Yeah.
So how does someone get to that point where they're just like, yeah, I don't care what you think. I'm being me. How What advice would you offer to someone who's trying to do that, but they don't know how?
It's a constant watcher of your thoughts. It truly is, right? So I have a coach that I work with for my emotional and mental self-work. And what she said was, the thought that we think in our head creates an emotion, and that emotion turns to action. So if we can stop it and say, because we create our own reality, right? Mm-hmm. What's going on right now, I can make it whatever I want. And if I turn that thought into a positive, I can have a positive emotion, or I can turn it into a negative and have a negative emotion. So the thought of, I don't know if I'm going to start my podcast. I don't know if I'm going to do this particular thing because what if they judge me, or what if I fail at it? So the fear sets in. So how do you change that? It's constantly watching your thoughts. And I have to do it all day long. It is practice, especially having so many people know who I am and being in business. You constantly have to say, okay, what's really going on here? What's the thought, and how is that affecting my emotion? And is that emotion causing me to have a positive or negative reaction? So your podcast, you wanted to inspire people. You wanted to bring something, share stories to help people. But the second you allowed that thought to become a fear thought and it turned to a negative, it could have stopped you. And you didn't let it, right? How did you work through that yourself? So I'm flipping the question.
Yeah, it's a great question. That fear did stop me. I had the name picked out. I had a metal mentality and what that meant. I had a logo drawn up. I had an account created on the platform, and I was ready to go with my first interview, and I got scared. I didn't think I could do it. And for 2 months, this podcast was an afterthought. It literally, I remember saying to myself, and I literally said this, that was a cool dream, too bad I couldn't make it happen. And it wasn't until I had an inspiring moment when I felt that I needed to do this for other people. And when I realized that it wasn't for me, I was able to commit to doing it. And I said to myself, if I'm supposed to do this, no matter what happens, I'm going to do it. And here we are now, 6 months later, and I think it'll be about the 25th or 26th episode. My initial goal was like, if I can just get past 7, that's great, because there are 850,000 podcasts out there, and about 700,000 of those don't make it past the 7th episode, because that's when it starts to get hard. Really? And then you get up to 21, that's the next level, the cutoff level. And so I think we've just passed that, so I think I'm good.
You're good. I'm here through.
But I say that because I didn't know what I was getting myself into to start it. I didn't know what it was going to entail. And I think that happens a lot of times with things. Whenever we take on a challenge and it pushes us, and we're uncomfortable when we're doing it to start. Once it gets hard and we realize, oh, I have to do this, there's more, that's when we quit.
So you had the thought that created the fear, and you held onto that dream, but in that moment, you stopped being interested and you committed yourself, and you've now started to create your dream. You've changed your reality. Mm-hmm. And now you're into episodes and you're realizing the work that's taking place, and you're willing to do what it takes to get to that space. And I think that's where resilience comes through, is being willing to keep going no matter how hard it is, and savoring the reward at the end of the path, and enjoying the journey along that path. I think that, especially for me, that was what I get so focused on the future, and I get so held back and hold myself to what happened in the past that I forget to live in this present moment. Mm-hmm. And the best reminder of who grounds me is Brad. You know, he's amazing at being a watcher of his thoughts and putting the conversation back on me, and that was why it was amazing to have him as my coach. And then also working with another coach too, is they're very grounded in how their thoughts and actions and feelings were, and so it helped me to keep going
and have that, to be able to self-regulate and have someone that is there to put you in check.
Yeah, put you in check.
Hold you accountable, right?
But with your podcast, you didn't have anybody holding you in check. You didn't have anybody saying, "Okay, Preston, you can do it." You had to be your own coach.
Are you interviewing me, or like, what's going on here? But this is about you, Bonnie. But I get what you're saying. I just think it's really funny that you flipped it. It was a struggle. It was, and but once I knew my why, why I was doing it, there was power in that. And when I found that power, it didn't matter what happened.
You'll do anything to get to, because
Yeah.
you are strong and committed in your why.
Yeah, and even like during the whole COVID quarantine thing, I had put the brakes on everything just because myself and my team, we just were kind of overwhelmed with everything that was going on. And we just took a sabbatical, and it actually ended up being really great because we were able to refocus and say, these things are necessary that we've been doing, but we've been putting more stress on these things that are unnecessary, which allowed us to free up more time and change the direction a little bit of how the show is going.
Yeah, you got to recalibrate your purpose.
Yeah. You talk about living present in the present moment. I want to hear your thoughts on why that's important and how can you stay connected and live in that moment.
This moment right now is all that's guaranteed. You and I, you don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And a realization I had on that is back during the COVID cutoff, when you were all isolated, we had to figure out what to do. I went out on my road bike down on Wasatch Boulevard, and exercise for me is very meditative. I get to push my mental capacity and burn all of that extra energy. And then when I'm done, I feel so good. I feel like I can come back. But anyway, I'm out on Wasatch Boulevard. That day I bought a brand new helmet. I had my bike all pumped up, and I thought I'm going to go for my hour ride and come back and spend it with my family. That day on the road, there was tons of bikes and runners, and I turned and started to head south on Wasatch. And as I'm just kind of in my own thoughts in my head, and I was praying too, meditating about my life and where I'm going to go and what to do and decisions to make. And it was like these thoughts were running through my head, and all of a sudden I'm on the ground. I was hit by a motorcycle who was cut off by a car, and I'm laying on the side of the road, and I'm like, what just happened? In that quick of a moment, I could have been hit by a car and died. I was lucky, super lucky, that the worst that happened is I had bruises and scrapes and, some back pain and things like that happened. I didn't break anything. I didn't have a head trauma. My head was pretty whiplash.
You had the new helmet,
yeah,
though.
I had a new helmet, but and even just thinking about that, like, what if I had hit my head hard enough that I wasn't wearing a helmet? What those last few minutes could have been my last. And I was in such shock for a couple of weeks after that. Like, what am I doing with my life? Am I where I want to be? Am I fulfilling my purpose? Because that's my biggest fear. Leaving this life and not living up to my fullest potential, whatever that is. So it's kept me on a path of self-discovery and learning more about myself. And Brad came and picked me up, and I laid on the couch for about a week, just kind of in shock that I'm so lucky that I got one more day to be with my kids. I'm lucky I got, another week to be with them, because in that one moment, it wasn't promised to me, that future. And we all forget that. We get so caught up in everything going that that's how you enjoy your life. Once I started to be present, it was like nothing else mattered, and everything was always all okay. It's all good, right? No matter what's going on in the world, you being present with your children is the happiest thing, because you're there focused right now. And that's a daily practice for me too, because I'm a very, schedule, get it done, chop, 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 very business. So for me, this year has been about truly learning to just slow down, take a minute, and focus on what's in front of me.
Would you say that that's one of the blessings, I guess, or one of the positive things you can take away from the pandemic we've had? Is it helped you refocus on the things that are important and slow down?
Yeah, everything is always happening for us. It's a matter of choice. Pandemic brings fear. And if you can think of the worst case scenario in anything in your life and be okay with it, then what's the worst thing that can happen? You always have a choice, right? Everybody has a choice. You could stay at a job and be comfortable doing what you're doing. You could stay in relationships and be comfortable, or you can make a different choice and go a different path. So pandemic definitely brought me down to slow down, because I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice.
I don't think anybody did, right?
Yeah, you have to slow down. And with our gym being closed down during that time, and shows being pushed back. I didn't have work, so I really got to be in the moment with my children and my husband and family, and really think about recalibrating our life. What do we want? Where do we want to be? And what does that look like?
When I was sent home from work and we started teleworking, and I was home every day, my first thought was, oh man, I can do so much awesome stuff. I got all this extra time.
Yeah.
I got all these projects. Like, my yard's going to look like
amazing.
I pay someone to take care of it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do so much stuff on the podcast. And that's how I started, right? And I quickly realized, no, I need to be putting my time and my effort into my kids and my wife and being there for them, because when it started, my 9-year-old was super worried. She didn't know what a pandemic was, what it meant. I'm like, oh, I've never been through this either.
Yeah.
But I needed to be there to emotionally support my family. And so my priorities changed too. And that was one of the big blessing takeaways, is it allowed me to really see the importance of being present for my family and removing things that I thought were priority to the back burner for another time.
Reprioritizing. Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed as I've interviewed many people for this podcast, and drawing from my own personal experience, is that when we are all in our own version of living hell, or the darkest or the lowest points, the way that we get out of that darkness is the path is very similar and almost the same for each of us. There's a foundation that we have to build that's universally true for growth and overcoming adversity. And I sum that up with 3 things. It's consistency, fortitude, and grit. How has your foundation been built when you were at your darkest times? I wonder if you talk a little bit about that, and how did you get out? What does your foundation look like? How did you form that?
The darkest time. Well, when things become really overwhelming for me, or something that I'm not able to handle, I numb myself with not drugs, but, I keep a very busy schedule so I don't have to feel. So during the whole COVID time, when I had to slow down and recalibrate, that was really hard for me, because I had to face and deal with a lot of emotions, and I had to slow down. And for me, going into that mental space, I physically got sick. Like, I mentally and emotionally, I just laid on the floor and I just cry. And once I let that out, it was like I could be free again. So coming out of dark spaces, I just cry. And I tell myself it's okay. And it's amazing, even if it's for a few minutes or for an hour, once I've worked through that, it's amazing how the weight comes off, and then you look back and you go, oh, that wasn't so bad. I can do this again. But it's each time it's different. I think you don't go through dark times at just one point in your life. I think it happens in different times in different areas of your life. But when most people come to a dark space, they don't see hope. And hope is what I believe brings you out of that dark space. Even if it's a text message or a thought or a music, there's some sliver of hope that enters into your mind that keeps you from making a really long-term decision. And for some, that's suicide. I never got to a place where I really wanted to take my own life, but I was in a mental space where I felt like I was dying. And I was, if you want to think of it as a spiritual, mental way, I had to let go, and I had to let parts of my way of thinking die in order for me to think differently and to grow. So, and that can be painful, right? Like, nobody wants to feel pain. It's like, you don't touch something hot because you know it's going to burn, so you don't do it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to avoid this situation or this conversation, or I'm going to avoid making hard decisions because that is going to be painful, and I do not
I'm
want
going to choose to do this the hard way, right? Yeah, nobody chooses to take the hard route.
No.
I mean, that's probably a generalization statement, but I'm pretty sure that that's true. So you're talking about your foundation of hope. Where do you find hope, and how can, when there seems to be no hope and nowhere to find hope, how can someone, or how do you find hope? How do you create that? Where do you find that?
I meditate a lot. Prayer brings you into a state of meditation. At least it does for me. That's how I define it. And whether it's a few minutes meditation can be anything, right? It's not just sitting on the ground. It could be biking, it could be walking, it could be hiking. And so when I start to have those feelings of overwhelm or despair, or a place that I don't feel like I know how to handle things, I stop what I'm doing and I go, okay, and I take breaths, and I work through those thoughts, and I just ask for a sign. Some people, that sign is something physical. Sometimes, if we're on the same vibration, on the same level of feeling, because we are all truly connected, if somebody sends you a text message, says, hey, how are you doing? Or, if you have a symbol or I'm like, for me, when I see a butterfly, it's a sign of hope. So when I'm talking and working through those things, sometimes I'll just say, hey, can I just have a sign? I'm really struggling, and something will come through for me. So for me, that's how I kind of get through those things, is I subconsciously and consciously set myself up to come out of those, knowing that I personally will go through that. And I don't always have somebody to ground me around, right? We don't always have that. But yeah, that's how I come out of it, especially when I'm emotionally so overwhelmed. And life can do that, right? With our kids, you get so overwhelmed in the moment, and they're arguing or doing whatever they're doing, and I just go, okay, I gotta take a step back. I'm gonna go in the garage. I'm gonna take a breath, and then I'm gonna come back.
So you're changing your perspective.
Changing my perspective.
And saying, well, is this happening to me, or am I witnessing something happen?
Yep.
And that's what I do with my kids a lot, because I feel like my kids hate me sometimes. And I'm like, why do you guys hate me? I'm like, oh no, if I take a different perspective, what I'm actually seeing is I'm watching my kids learn how to function in a family. They're watching them learn how to express themselves.
Yeah.
It's not happening to me. I'm witnessing it happen. I can choose to say this is happening to me. That's a victim mentality that we have. And when we go into that victim mentality, I think we are forfeiting our ability to change, because we are no longer accountable for anything that happens. And if we have that accountability piece, we get to choose what is happening to us and what we are witnessing. It's a choice.
It is all a choice. And we're programmed to think there's bad and good. Mm-hmm. Is there really there are things that are not good, and there are things that are better. But when it comes to how you look at perspective, right? Is there a wrong way to do things?
In what way do you mean is there a wrong way to do things? Is there a wrong way to look at things? A wrong way to have a perspective?
Wrong way to have perspective, or more looking at it like, oh, there's two paths here, there's two ways, there's two things, and look at the choice.
Or maybe it's not even binary. Maybe it's not two. Maybe there's a third, fourth, fifth, sixth option. There's a secret door that you just got to find it to understand it. Yeah, I like that.
But they all come with consequences.
And then that's the truth, is no matter what choice you make, there's a consequence.
There's
a
consequence
that follows.
Yep.
And you don't get to choose that.
No, it comes with whatever, right? Whether it's the growing of new relationships, the ending of old relationships, whether that be friendships or whatever it is, things evolve and change. They're always evolving and changing, right? You're not the same person you were just 20 minutes ago, because we're evolving and changing, and that energy is changing. So, yeah, I think being able to stay present and watcher of your thoughts and all of that stuff it's a constant reminder. Another thing you do is I wear bracelets, or I'll carry a rock in my pocket. That's a huge thing too, is like, hey, okay, twiddle it in my hand. What's the real issue? And I kind of detour that energy.
It's kind of like a fidget spinner thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just something to just kind of ground you.
Yeah,
and
okay.
Focus, distract
what,
you.
What does my bracelet say? Like, I have mantras on the inside of mine.
What is your mantra?
Oh, what is a mantra, and then what is mine? You know, the thing I tell myself when things feel hard is I just say, beautiful girl, you are capable of hard things. And when we talk kind to ourselves, it changes how we treat ourselves. Because how we talk negatively to ourselves, would we talk negatively to our child that way? Or our spouse? Or our friend? And that was part of my evolution too, was learning how to be kinder to myself, just because things weren't perfect or weren't working out or wasn't enough or whatever was. Once I started being kinder to myself, I began to change physically, mentally, spiritually, and it keeps me more grounded.
It sounds like that's how you learned how to value yourself and accept yourself for who you are, is by the words that you said to yourself.
Yeah.
There's a very well-known, I guess he's a mental health coach. He works with the Seattle Seahawks. His name's Trevor Moawad. And I listened to an interview he did on another show, and he talked about the scientific research behind the negative things that we say to ourselves. And it's not just the negative things like, you suck, I can't do this.
No, it's self-talk.
It's anything debilitative. It's like being tired and saying like, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, I don't feel good, I don't want to do this. But those things that we say, those negative words we say, what he says is they can actually see what's happening to the brain and the chemicals being released when you say those things through an MRI, that they are 40 to 50 times more impactful than anything positive you can say. So I think that it starts with just being kind to yourself.
It does.
And then that's how you learn how to value yourself, is to just not hate yourself for your failures, not identify by your failures. Don't beat yourself up because you didn't achieve something or you failed.
Have you ever validated yourself and felt that power, that inner connection where I just validated myself, so I don't really care what you or you think because I'm good with me?
How do you do that? How do you validate yourself?
Well,
like how could you teach someone
me personally, or how did I come to that?
Let's say like I don't know how to. And you're saying you need to validate yourself. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, how would you teach me how to do that?
When you talk about being a life coach, I wouldn't say like I'm a life coach because I'm still going through life myself, but I do have close people to me that we stay. I have like 3 or 4 people women that they text me and they reach out to me, and we kind of bounce things off of each other. So I guess we do coach each other. And one of my good friends, she asked me the same thing, and this is how I explained it to her. I said, when you wake up in the morning, what things are you grateful for? I said, write 5 grateful things first. And that gratefulness, it changes everything, right? Everything feels like it's okay. So then you're validating the outside world by being grateful. How do you validate what's inside of yourself? You know, I tell people, why don't you look at the things that you do right and you do well, and the people you do help?
Is it kind of an individual thing that you really
for sure you have to find that way?
But just finding, because what I'm hearing you say, and when I think about myself, is you could say 3 things that maybe name 10 things that you feel like you're mediocre at, and then name 5 things that you feel like you're extraordinary at.
So I'm highly emotional, right? Energy, emotion in energy is emotions in movement. And for me, I get too emotional because I overthink things. But my strength is once I've worked through those things and I'm grounded in that, I know how to handle the situation better. I know how to empathize with people, not have sympathy for them, where I just say, oh, that's too bad. But I really, truly try to put myself in their shoes and empathize with them and see through their perspective, their eyes, which is a good and a bad thing. My weakness comes because then I want to help them. I want to do stuff for them. I want to make everything feel
you want
good.
to save them.
not save them.
That's me. That's what I want to do.
I want you to feel as
Yeah.
good as I see you. And I went back to that with my friend, and I went, I see this beautiful person, this soul, this kind, caring person, and she doesn't see what I see. And then the next thought was, oh my gosh, a good friend of mine, I came into the gym one day and she gave me a hug and she said, Bonnie, I just love you so much. And she said, are you doing okay? And I just said, yeah, I'm doing good. And she said, and she just said this out of the blue, she just said, I don't know that you know how valued you are. I don't know that you know what we see. And you need to know that what we see on the outside is that you're amazing. And that stuck with me. I went, wow, like, I validate everybody else and they love me for who I am, but I'm not loving me for who I am. And so I had to start writing down my I ams. What do I value about myself? I value that I'm a good mom. I value that I can see something, a need, and know how to meet it, whether that be emotional, physical. And I validated that I always have good intentions. Even if stuff doesn't work out the way you want it to, I always care that whatever I'm interacting or doing with whatever business, personal, I care that you know that I care about you. And so once I started appreciating those things about me and bringing gratitude into my life, it changes how you look at the world.
How do you look at the world now?
Opportunity. Even when things feel really hard or like they can't pan out, I just come back to a place and I say, you know what? It's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. Because why? We're the creator of our life, right? I can create anything I want. I could stop doing anything at any time and make a different choice, right? My success in real estate isn't dependent on anyone else except for me and the work I'm willing to put in, what I'm willing to do, what I'm willing to learn to make my success grow. I would stop that success by my belief in myself. And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck is we have these beliefs that we're not capable. Well, until you go there, how do you know? A huge example of this is when we were building this gym, it was in the crash of 09, that fall. We financially were no money. My husband said, I'm going to leave corporate and start my own business. I was pregnant. We didn't have insurance, but he had a vision and he had a leap of faith to know that he was capable. And because he believed in himself enough to know that he could do it, he made it happen. And he grew that business from, 3 trainers and a tiny little studio to be what it is today, a thriving, high energy place where all the bodybuilders want to come and train because he's handpicked the best equipment and the kind of person he is. So without that belief in ourselves, it's hard to do big things. And the same with my businesses moving forward. If I didn't have a belief to know that I could help people and that I'm capable of handling difficult situations, I would just kind of be average and I would stay comfortable. So you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
I love that saying, and it's kind of almost become cliche.
I know.
But if you are willing to be uncomfortable, I think that as long as you're consistently willing to be uncomfortable for a while,
Yeah.
that there's not much you won't be able to accomplish. I think that fear of being uncomfortable is what limits our growth and what we are capable of accomplishing.
Well, how do you know till you try, right?
You
How
don't.
did you know your podcast was going to be successul until you tried?
I didn't.
Yeah, you don't.
I didn't
you
even
don't
know how
know.
to edit. That's why I had to find someone to produce my show.
Yeah.
But now I'm at a point where if I have an idea of something I want to do, I've proven to myself that I'm capable of doing these difficult things, and that whatever I just commit myself to, if I believe in the purpose behind it, I can make it happen. Maybe it won't be as soon as I want it to happen, but I can. And I think that that's true for anybody. I think anybody can get to that point. And like, I don't want to sound like I have it all figured out, because I still have a lot of work to do on myself. And I'm not always the best dad. I'm not always the best husband. I'm not always the best friend. But what I am good at is I recognize that I'm not. I'm not comfortable with where I'm at. I still want to change. And I see that in you, that you're not comfortable with where you're at. What you've accomplished is not enough. And not that it's not enough because you need to accomplish things to feel good about yourself, but it's that you know that you're capable of more. And the fact that you know that you're capable of more, and you will not remain comfortable where you're at, because you could be comfortable right now.
You are. And my transformation probably started about 4 years ago, more than anything, when I was going through some really difficult things. And I started to think, where do I want to be? What do I really want to be doing? And that's where it starts. So you start with all the self-help books. You start, consuming all the podcasts possible. And you could do that all day long, but until you put the action forward, nothing's going to change, right?
The hardest part of doing anything
is
making the commitment to do it and starting.
Yeah.
But once you start it, you got the momentum rolling. Right?
Once that momentum rolling too, and if it's good energy, things will show up for you. Things will start to happen. I've put it out there. I just said, if this is the path that's meant for me, and it feels good to me, I just leave it in your hands. Like, let it come. And learning to let go, because what resists persists. You can't bring. Here's a good example. Like, something will happen for me, and I go, oh, perfect, and then I try to control it, and then universe says, I'm trying to help you and you're trying to control it. Let go and let's just let it flow. And for me, that's learning. That's one of my weaknesses I get to focus on. And learning to let go and to grow. But yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, when it's uncomfortable, we want to feel like we're in control.
Yep, we try to control it.
Because then we can control the discomfort.
Yeah,
right?
but it doesn't.
But that's not how it works. Like, I've noticed some things, like I'm trying to force things to happen, and it's like, I'm doing about this wrong. If I change my perspective on what I'm trying to accomplish, and recalibrate what my intentions are. If I'm doing it out of service to others in a truly altruistic manner, things just start coming my way. But if I'm trying to make something happen because it makes me feel good, or my ego steps in and says you need to do this to be validated, or whatever it is, if I'm not doing it out of altruistic, if I'm not doing it out of love for my brothers and sisters, I don't mean just my biological, I'm talking my military family, and just brothers and sisters as God's children, that if I'm doing it because I love them, things happen that I wouldn't be able to even dream as a possibility. But we have to have. I think it comes from our motivation, why we're trying to do things, which determines the level of our success in fulfilling our purpose in life. So when I see you and where you're at, I see an individual who is just starting to understand your power and the ability that you have to make a positive impact for good in this world. And you're taking all of the pain that you've had, and the suffering and the hardship and the disappointments and the failures that are in your past, and have used that as a catalyst to become awesome.
Well, thank you. I don't even know what to say, except for I guess I never thought of it that way. But I see what you mean, because you've known me from the time I was 16 and had all sorts of fun stuff going on and left home early. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I mean, we've known each other for 20 years.
20 years,
that,
can
right?
you believe that?
I feel so old by saying that, and I'm not. I know I'm not old. I'm only 35, but I feel...
God, you're old.
I can look at 20, yeah, right? I can look back 20 years ago, like when I remember that first time you met.
That vibration, that same energy that you and I shared together as friends, now you're married and I'm married and we both have kids and nothing, other ways, but it's like you can appreciate people for how they came into your life, right? How many more years did we come back around? And because we knew where we were at that time in our life, it's been fun to see that growth.
Yeah. I think even at that young age, as teenagers, we just didn't know it because we were young and naive and didn't know who we were ourselves. But we had the same life mission.
Maybe we were meant to work together in other ways, and that's where that connection comes in. Yeah. And we're all connected. How can we help each other so we can help others? Because isn't that what this life really is about? Yeah. I mean, heaven truly is here now in this moment. Because when you die, I mean, dust to dust, that's it. You're done. I mean, depending on what your beliefs are, of course. Yeah. And for me, that's changed. So I believe my reward is now. My reward is with my children. It's the conversations I get to have, and it's the people I get to impact and influence. And what makes me so sad is when you meet somebody and they are capable, or you see so much in them and they just don't know it yet. And for me, that was other people who saw something bigger in me and showed it to me or helped me to realize or come to that. And so it's choosing to be aware of how you can be that for somebody else, because you just don't know. Mm-hmm. You just don't know.
Yeah, that is so frustrating when you see potential in someone and they think they're worthless. Or they just don't know.
Yeah, you just want to
they don't know what's.
Give them a hug.
They're just like, how do I get this out of you? And so I had several years ago, as a young sergeant in the Army, I had one of my senior leaders came to me and he just said, "You know what pisses me off about you, Yule?" And I'm editing this. Yeah. So I was like, I didn't know it pissed you off. No. And he said, "Pisses me off so much that you don't understand how much potential you have to be a good leader." He said, "I don't know why you won't embrace it." He said, "I don't know how to teach you how to embrace it." He said, "But what you have inside of you, you could go as far as you want, and you're choosing not to, and it pisses me off." And he said, "I don't know how to help you." He said, "So tell me how to help you." And I was like, I don't know how to answer this. But just him saying that belief in me changed the trajectory of my leadership style and my role, not only in the military, but as a father and as a husband. And I realized I can be a leader despite whatever my rank or title or position might be. Yeah. I'm a leader by my actions. And I don't think I'm the greatest leader on earth. I certainly don't. I have a lot more room to grow. But if had he not shook me like that, I don't think I would be where I'm at.
Yeah, but you have to, once he gives you that belief, you have to take it on and choose to believe in yourself too. Because with as many people as believed as I was capable, because I didn't think that I was good enough or worthy enough or enough, I thought, oh, well, they believe it, so that should be enough to get me to my destination. And it wasn't. And so I never ended up at my destination. I got 6 weeks out from a bodybuilding show, and my coach had a ton of belief in me and said, "You can do this." And it wasn't because I didn't believe him. I didn't believe in myself enough to finish that show to get to that point. And that's where a lot of winners come from, is getting over that hump to finish that out.
How do you capitalize on the belief of others in you? How do we do that?
I think it's when you don't have anyone to validate that. You start validating yourself by, like my friend saying, "Bonnie, I don't know that you know how much you're loved." And I went, gosh, everyone around me loves me. Why don't I love Bonnie? What is it about that feeds my mind and my thoughts that creates this emotion? What is it that I don't like about me? And have you ever read the book 4 Agreements? You read that book?
Parts of it, yeah.
It's a really good book. One of the agreements is being true to your word, and that can be to other people. I'm very dependable. You need something, I'll get it done. You want something, I'll make it happen no matter what, to a fault. But I wasn't doing that for myself. And isn't that the most important, is the little agreements that we make with ourselves, whether it's to get out of bed on time, that little validation gives you confidence to accomplish the next thing, right? You're going to eat good throughout the day, so you keep that agreement with yourself, and then you make it through the day. And how much confidence does that build? So I think the biggest thing is, if you want to build a good, strong foundation of confidence, you have to keep those little promises to yourself, those agreements with you, and it can help form your beliefs.
I think that's how you build trust. You learn to trust yourself.
Trusting
you
yourself.
You make those commitments.
Yeah.
those promises and you keep them. Because if you don't keep them, you're not going to trust yourself the same way as if I made you a promise repeatedly over and over, and I consistently don't follow through on keeping those. You don't trust me. The same thing happens to us internally and mentally to ourselves. If we don't keep the promises to ourselves, maybe it's I'm going to be up 10 minutes earlier today than I was, and like I'm going to actually eat breakfast instead of just
and it's so little.
Or maybe it's like, oh, I'm going to take a vitamin in the morning before I leave for work, and you don't do it. Like you do that consistently, you learn to not trust yourself. And how sad is that to live that so many of us don't honor ourselves and learn to trust ourselves and keep those promises.
Imagine what our relationships would be like if we were all like that, with our family, with our friends, in our personal, romantic relationships. When you validate who you are and as a whole person come to that place of grounding, it's amazing what changes for you. Because no matter the reaction or the situation within those dynamics, when you trust what you're doing, I don't know how to describe it. It's just different.
That's where your power comes from.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good.
That's how you harness your power.
Yeah.
And that's where you find your why. I think that it all comes from the way we talk to ourselves.
Yeah.
And keeping the promises that we make to ourselves, those commitments, and then we can find our why behind why we're doing it. And you find the why, and if you truly understand that why and you value your why, you're unstoppable.
Well, and you take all of that power and carry it into your business. How many people, because I was dependable and kept my promises, they knew they could depend on me, and so it grew my business faster than I ever thought. And same with my real estate business. People know that I'm dependable and I'm looking out for their best interest, and my why behind it isn't just about that paycheck at the end of the transaction, but the process and the journey that we go through together. They know that I'm going to keep promises to myself, which if I'm keeping them to myself, they'll know I'll keep them to them.
Do you think it's impossible to keep promises to other people without keeping them to yourself?
Do I think it's impossible to keep promises to yourself without keeping them to other people? I'm not sure how to answer that. I think it's possible. I think circumstances come up and you can do your very best, but sometimes shit happens. Like, what do you do? If I make a promise to you that something's going to happen, and I'm doing my very best, then it's just circumstance. It just changes. Like I can only do my best, right?
But say it's like, hey, I promise I'll call you tomorrow.
Oh.
Right? You made a promise to yourself too, right?
Yeah.
That you were going to do that, and then to me. So can you keep promises to me if you're not keeping promises to yourself?
I don't think so, when you put it that way.
That's just a thought that I just had. I've never had that thought cross.
Yeah, I don't know. But maybe they could change. I don't know.
I don't think
so deep.
It is deep, yeah. Well, we're about out of time here, and I want to wrap up here just by asking you one last question. Okay. This is actually a question that you asked me.
Oh.
When I invited you to come on the podcast. You asked me this, and I said, that's a great question. I'm going to ask you it on the podcast. And this is it. Let's imagine that the things you say to yourself, or the lies that you believe other people say, or whatever it is that you believe that creates your insecurities, or it did not exist. It was not a possibility for you, and you were not capable of being insecure and caring what other people thought. How powerful would you be, and what would you be able to accomplish? You would ultimately feel very limitless. It's a whole nother level of power, and I wouldn't say that I'm there, but I feel moments of that, where I work through the thought of that insecurity, whatever it may be, and once I'm able to set that aside, it's like you're fearless, right? And if you didn't have fear, think of something that scares you the most, and if you didn't have that, how limitless would you be in that activity or situation?
minor, but being in real estate, you've got to be open-minded to talking to people and being comfortable having conversations, whether you know them or not, and just letting the conversation go where it is. And even though I love people and I love talking to them, knocking on someone's door and saying, hey, you want to sell your house? Can I sell your house? It's the fear of rejection. And once I got over that fear of being rejected, it was very invigorating. It was like, oh, I could do anything, because I think that's what we're all afraid of, right? Well, none of us want to be rejected in any way.
We fear rejection. Yeah, I think that's what stops most of us from believing in ourselves.
But what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no. That's the worst that could happen.
Right.
And if we're okay with the worst case scenario, then really what's the big deal?
You just have to imagine what the worst case scenario could be and make peace with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice, Bonnie. After people hear your story and learn about you and they want to work with you, and maybe in real estate or personal development or personal fitness, how can they get in contact with you?
My phone number or my email address, probably email address for quicker response, and just, let me know what your need is. Let me know how I can help you, and I respond from there. I don't quite have a website put up yet. I'm still kind of figuring those things out. And when it comes to, the life support and coaching each other through circumstances, it's a person-to-person basis and what I can do to help them, because I am still being coached. And so I'm going to give you as many tools as I can, but ultimately, it
may not be a good fit, right?
I want to make sure that we're fitting together. Same thing with real estate. I want to know that I can help you find your home or help you sell your home, and make sure that I'm a good fit. I'd love to help anybody.
Well, what is your phone number, and what is the email address you'd like to?
So it's 801-462-5455, or they can reach me at Bonniebarberrealestate at hotmail.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
This has truly been a pleasure. I know I personally have learned that you're an incredible woman. I still don't think you fully understand your potential. You're talking about this. There's more inside of you that is untapped. And as you dig deeper and you find out more about yourself, you're going to find a whole nother reservoir of awesomeness down there that's going to enable you to just change the lives of people. And I think you're going to be one of the people that when you leave this life, whenever that is and however that is, people will look at you and say, Bonnie made a difference. She made me believe in myself. She had an impact on my life in a way that nobody else could. And I'm grateful that she was a part of my life.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. I hope so.
It'll happen.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Hey guys, be sure to follow the Metal Mentality Podcast on social media. And as always, if you find value in the show, please leave a review and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. But more importantly, share this podcast with someone you know who would benefit from the messages from the guests on each episode. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Metal Mentality.